Close the borders. I mean, I wonder how often you might hear that come up and whether people thought that that might be what they were voting for when they voted for Brexit, or how many of them might have thought that.
Well, I think there's been a whole range of different views that people have had. I think immigration's important for Britain, but it's got to be controlled and managed so that the system is fair. And certainly the majority of people think that immigration should be lower, and people did vote for more controls. But what kind of controls and what sort of reforms should we have? At the moment, the government's not consulting people as part of the Brexit negotiations, so we want, as part of our cross-party inquiry, to hear what it is people think from across the country, and can we also come up with some common ground, something that can unite people rather than divide us, because it has been such a divisive issue.
This sounds like such a sensible idea. Really, really great. Let's go out, let's hear what people have to say. It was such a fundamental element within the referendum vote. Why has it taken till now, Yvette, for this to happen, for someone to grab the bull by the horns and go out and find out? We could have done with this 5 years ago to get a sense before people were voting on something, as Susanna said, maybe they thought they were voting to close the borders.
I think that's right. We should have had this discussion. And I think, to be honest, look, successive governments have failed on immigration, and we've seen public concern go up. We know that, you know, a lot of what the majority of people say is that immigration's good for the economy, but they want more controls, particularly maybe on low-skilled immigration. But what kind of controls, what sorts of reforms would make a difference and would give people confidence in the system?
Well, I suggest one reason that people have been perhaps frightened talking about immigration. If I take you back to an election campaign where your leader at the time, Gordon Brown, had an encounter with Gillian Duffy in which she said you can't say anything about the immigrants because you're saying that you're ... All these Eastern Europeans are coming in. Where are they flocking from? Gordon Brown gets into the car and calls her a bigoted woman. People have been frightened about talking about immigration because they're afraid of being called bigoted by your own party.
And that was wrong, and it was the wrong thing to say, and I think that Gordon Brown accepted that afterwards.
But did you think that at the time?
Yeah.
Or did you, though, genuinely? Because I wonder whether there was a feeling within the Labour Party at the time, which was a real acceptance of immigration. You know, Ed Miliband has said that you got it wrong back then. You could have done something about it at the time. You didn't introduce controls. When the borders were opened up to Eastern Europe, there were, you know, thousands of people came in, and, you know, you may have thought this is all welcome, and people who oppose it are bigoted. And that's certainly the impression that everybody got from Gordon Brown's comments.
And so that's not what I thought, but I do think that the Labour government got it wrong by not having those transitional controls in place on Eastern Europe. I think that the Conservative government has got it wrong since by having a target that they're nowhere near meeting, and so that undermines confidence in the system as well. But look, you've got to be really clear. It's not racist to be worried about immigration. People are and need to have a discussion about it, but we should be able to do so in a way that is fair, that is sensible, that talks about what kinds of changes would give people confidence, and people shouldn't be afraid to talk about it. And what we found when I've done public meetings on this in the past is actually there's a lot more consensus than you'd think. When you get people in a room talking to each other about what kinds of reforms they want, and you look at different kinds of immigration, because look, there's a difference between students coming to study or low-skilled immigration, where I've for a long time said I think we should have less low-skilled immigration because that has an impact, where you get employers, for example, exploiting it to undercut wages and jobs. So let's look at different kinds of immigration, and let's give people the chance to have their say properly all around the country. That's what we want this inquiry to do.
And you basically say to people, you can say anything in these meetings. You know, we're not judging you on what you say.
We want people to say what it is they think. That's the whole point about them. Now, I hope that people will do that in a way that isn't just offending and attacking each other, because people have strongly different views. You want everybody to get together and talk about where's the common ground, what can we agree on, but also to be honest about what their views are and what kind of sensible reforms that we can all come behind.
It's a big job, but and needless to say, a very important one.